Hi, and welcome back to the Designer Showcase. I am Rose Bolson, the current high school intern at Indiana Fashion Foundation. And today we are going to learn more about your story as a designer, your experience at Indiana Fashion Week, and everything you've been doing since. So, thank you so much for joining me today. If you would like to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Thank you for having me, by the way. I am Emily Gartner, and my brand is called Emily Gartner Designs, but I also have a studio where I teach. It's called Art Thread Studio, very appropriately titled. Um, and I was part of Indiana Fashion Foundation's showcase a couple of years ago and was one of the designers, being of a mature age myself, who showcased women 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So it was a little bit different from what most fashion shows incorporate and showcase. And so grateful that Indiana fashion is inclusive in that way, size inclusive, age inclusive, and just diverse and inclusive all around.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So I first just want to ask, what is the background that led you to being a designer?
I think which something that's common in a lot of children, they start showing that they're interested around age 12. They're wanting to utilize scraps of clothing from things that they already have in their closet. And this dates back pretty far. So I've been upcycling, recycling clothes since the 70s. I kind of cringe when I say that. Wow, that's been a while. Um, when I was 12, there are four girls in our family. I'm a twin and the youngest by a few minutes. And for my older sister's birthday, who was 17 at the time, I took our cutoff jeans, the denim from that, and I crafted a denim handbag that was fully lined and had pockets. And that was her gift that birthday. She worked in an office, and she, of course, carried it into the office and came home and asked me if I'd like to make six more handbags. And I was like, really? Yeah, of course. I'd love to earn extra money. So that was kind of the start of it. And off and on over the years, I have sewn a lot or just been involved in fashion, textiles to some degree. It's always been textiles at the root of almost everything I've done for 40 years.
Mhm. Yeah. So were there any other like aha moments that like secured your plan as a designer?
Um, I think just having some things be more kind of full circle moments. The
Mhm.
majority of my adult life was spent working in New York City's garment center.
Mm.
And I worked for a cotton house that did small prints, and it was mostly for quilt fabrics. So I kind of got a lot of experience with that as a fashion merchandiser and sales rep for that company. I would come in every morning and I'd walk through the designers area,
Mm.
and it was amazing. They were hand painting all of the prints that would eventually get printed on what's called gray goods, the basic cottons. So I've always kind of stuck with cottons has been high on my list of what I used to sew with too.
Yeah.
Pretty sustainable. Um, I create my own prints and I also upcycle as well. And I mix those two together. And when I create my own prints and I do a fashion collection, it's pre-order and it's sold in advance. I'm not going to be holding a lot of things in inventory that just sits there on a rack.
Yeah. Awesome. And as I was like looking at your website and also the pictures from Indiana Fashion Week, I saw that you like to design like a lot of scarves and jackets and bags.
Yeah.
So how would you describe the kind of designs that you most like to create?
I'm kind of on a kick with florals. I was actually in Milan Fashion Week a month after Indiana Fashion Week. And so that is the land of Gucci. Gucci does some beautiful florals. So I have an Indianapolis 500 bomber jackets that I created, inspired by the first female to qualify for the Indy 500 in the 70s.
Mhm.
And she was trying to get sponsorships and she was just cringing over some of the things that they wanted her to wear. So I came up with a line of bomber jackets. The white orchid is important in this line because that's what the winner of the Indianapolis 500 wears around their neck, fresh cut white orchid wreath after they win the race.
Yeah.
So I have my white orchids
I,
jacket on. This was a print I came up with last year after speaking to Louisa Macer. She's the community engagement director for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So the scarf,
yeah.
shoes. If somebody likes Vans, they're very much like Vans. The handbag that you've got some race symbols, but then it's incorporated with the white orchid as well.
Yeah.
Um, this line I have had designed, I've sent to a company in New York City to do the cut and sew part of it. And then I've done the design and the pattern layout. And so that isn't complete start to finish in my studio. But then there's other items that are complete start to finish in the studio.
Yeah.
Just depends on what's happening that season.
Yeah, and it's perfect because it's race month. So, do you have any like fun projects that you could share, any fun events that you have planned this month?
Well, we know, May in Indianapolis, it's all about Fashion Fridays. So, Nicole Griffin with WRTV came and she did kind of a behind the scenes feature of the collection. A lot of the models that I use, of course, they're local. And a good friend of mine, Jennifer Bibbs Wilson, she's done all my photography for the website. So we just kind of had a fun night of makeup, fashion, styling, and hanging out with Nicole while she interviewed us. So that was super fun. I don't know yet when that's going to be on WRTV, but definitely let you guys know when that happens.
Yeah.
Beyond that, what I was doing before I got on the Zoom call with you, um, let's see. I love to incorporate the printed pieces with upcycled pieces too. So I brought a pair of jeans, and this is the lanyard from the 5K marathon.
Wow.
And Indiana Dairy Association is affiliated with that marathon. And she brought me all these lanyards last year, and I made a white denim jacket for her with one of their favorite milkshakes at the Dairy Barn on the back of her jacket. So I'm using some of the scraps from the lanyards to just decorate these jeans.
Wow.
And that's really what's going to happen the rest of May for me. I've designed the collection. There's quite a few colors to choose from. And there's a little bit of a 70s vibe in there too, with it being inspired by Janet Guthrie from the 70s.
Yeah.
So one of the orange jackets on my website even has a spirograph symbol. So it's been super fun.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so kind of segueing into Indiana Fashion Week, how did you first hear about Indiana Fashion Week and how did you get involved?
The very first year that they had a runway show, I brought two of my teen sewing students from Evansville. We did a Kickstarter to be able to afford to come up to Indiana Fashion Week, and they were in the teen part of the fashion show.
Mhm.
And one person, one of them in particular, I had mentored them from 8th grade up until just a few years ago, and they have been in numerous programs with Indiana Fashion Foundation. They've just shown exceptional passion for fashion and continue to do so. And that person just is really gifted.
Yeah.
And I had a relative who was their teacher and said, look, there's so much our school was able to do with them. We really need some additional help. Would you be willing to mentor? And at first I resisted it. And I'm thinking, am I out of my mind? It was the absolute one of the best things I've ever done is mentoring this young person who has so much promise and creativity. And I could see being at Met Gala some year, really.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mhm.
And so how was the process of being in Indiana Fashion Week 2021? What was that like?
I loved it because it's not like, hey, we just want you to show up and take your entry fee and, be done with you. There wasn't, it's not like that at all. There's an educational component there. We're back to sustainability. Like, how can we help you continue to thrive beyond this week of fashion? And so the fact that they are connected with CFDA out of New York and that link with the Council of Fashion Designers in America is there, that's a very big deal.
Yeah.
I know they did not get accredited right away, but by the time that I was in that particular showcase, uh, 3 people from CFDA were there to judge our garments. And I
Wow.
mean, that was incredible. The
Yeah.
feedback um, from someone who was on the global TV show Making the Cut and hearing their advice, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's where else would you even get that? And to think that you're getting that in the state of Indiana is pretty exceptional.
Yeah, definitely. And how do you think that advice like impacted you? Do you still like let that influence your designs today?
Well, I haven't really made any public notice about what's going to happen around the corner, but maybe the time is right to do that now, right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
with that, I did an additional business cohort with Indiana Fashion and CFDA.
Mhm.
And one of the coaching sessions I got through that, um, there were 2 buyers that used to buy fabric for Mood Fabric out of New York. During COVID, they came together and they do consulting for independent fashion designers. That 45-minute, 1-hour coaching session I got with Brenda Polanco, she's like, have you ever thought of licensing your custom designs? Because it can not only go on fabrics for clothing, but interiors, gifts, stationaries, all kinds of things.
Mhm.
So I just assigned a license agreement
Wow.
with Michigan State University.
Wow.
And okay, now we're back to Indiana Fashion. I'm blowing about them today, but there was good reason for that. Erica Austin, who used to be the licensing person for the NFL Colts, she went to Michigan State University to
Mhm.
do that branding and managing there.
Wow.
Chatting with her after she landed back there, and there was, the unfortunate incidences that happened on campus, and just reached out to her and said I was thinking about her. I'm sure it must have been really hard. And then as we continued to talk to each other, I said, hey, if you ever need someone to design some merchandise for you on a little bit more of a fashion angle, not so much just dead set sport angle,
Mhm.
I'd love to be considered. So she sent me a link, and it is accredited with a company out of Atlanta that does a lot of college licensing.
Mhm.
So that's been approved. All
Wow.
my paperwork's been done. and I'm getting ready to start designing for them now.
Wow, that is congratulations. That is
Thank
a big
you.
achievement. That is so exciting. Oh my
Thank you.
gosh.
And then next week, because of that, and I really would like to lean into more of the licensing aspect of what I do as my skill set. Um, I'm flying to New York City to a show specifically for artists and surface textile designers to network and meet up with companies that will buy your license
Yeah.
and pay either for exclusivity or to have your print on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
So I'm really just looking forward to that and seeing what's out there, having never explored that aspect of the business yet.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's so
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of segues me into my next question. From an outsider's perspective, fashion can sometimes go like unnoticed in Indiana. And so, how do you think fashion plays a role in Indiana in your eyes?
Um, I'm gonna say, having been at Milan Fashion Week and being limited to size 2 to size 6 models, and they were all wonderful people to work with, and they were from all over the world. Um, I feel like it took me going across the world, across the pond, to find out really what was truer to me and myself was what I showcased in Indiana. I loved the line that I came up with for Milan, completely different. It was all hand dyed, upcycled clothing mixed with my prints as accents. I did love that line, but I felt like I had a truer representation as the Indiana fashion group behind me and what they bring to the table. That particular promoter, and this happens a lot, people are asked to showcase in Paris, London, all over the world. And it sounds like a big woo woo moment, and it really is. But you have to really do your homework.
Yeah.
And I felt at the end of the day and I loved it. I loved the experience. I loved vacationing there after. But when I came home, I felt slightly used
Mm.
because it was very expensive. Traveling there was very expensive. There were no results from showcasing there.
Yeah.
Um, they did not do their due diligence in getting people there.
Yeah.
Um, it just felt like your money was taken and thank you very much. And that was kind of it.
Yeah. And so, in contrast, how would you describe your line for Indiana Fashion Week? How is it different, and how did it showcase your abilities as a designer?
I kind of drew from my experience having worked for that cotton print house in New York City back in the 80s. And I did a cohesive line that all had the same color palette, but they were very different. There was an abstract painting that was scanned onto fabric, which was Angela Brown's Kaftan. And that was beautiful. And I did a headpiece for her out of that same fabric. And then I had another person who did big, bold geometric colors on a white background, but it was still the same exact colors that I pulled from the kaftan. Then 3 of the 5 in that capsule collection were taken from a deconstructed wedding gown that I hand dyed in green and purple. And they also matched that too.
Mm.
Every single person's outfit was completely different, but color palette brought it together cohesively.
Oh,
And I tried to design for each person in mind and not so much about me. It became more about the person wearing it. It was extremely intentional in the absolute exact person who was wearing it and their comfort level.
that's awesome. Yeah. And so, for our final questions, I just want to ask, what is the best advice that you have ever received as a designer?
Gosh, that's so fully loaded. Where do you begin? I mean, to always stay open as far as your inspiration, there's so many directions that you can go. And, collaborating with others. I share a studio with Jen Feltz of Tokyo Twiggy brand. She won the first Indiana Fashion Week.
Wow.
And we met at one of the talks at Saks Fifth Avenue that IFF did. And we became friends. And she's, young enough to be my daughter, but we have been sharing a studio now for 3 years. And I think just connecting with others and collaborating with others can really bring so much more to your business and to you personally.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Before we close, I just want to ask how we can support you and access your designs and buy them.
I have a Etsy shop right now, and it's Art Threads Studio .etsy.com, and it's the majority of it is that Indy 500 line, but there is a Kentucky Derby jacket on there, which is any day now going to be featured in a Paris magazine.
Wow.
So I would love if people would just check out my website
Yeah,
and let me know what they think about the current Indy 500 line.
yeah, definitely. Is there anything else before we close?
I just, I always love the opportunity to speak about what I love, and I'm grateful that you reached out to me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Sure.
Indiana Fashion Foundation always strives to share designer stories and amplify voices. So thank you for giving us the opportunity today. And I can't wait to see what's in the future for Emily Gartner's designs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, Rose. Bye-bye.
Bye.